All right, buckle up, because this isn't just another Frontline report. This is different. Ukraine just brought the war directly to the heart of the Russian Federation, hitting Moscow hard with one of the largest, most audacious attacks on the capital since this entire nightmare began. Think about that for a second. We're talking about Moscow, the city encircled by the supposedly impenetrable ring of radars and S-400 air defense systems, the very seat of Kremlin power. And despite all that, they were caught completely off guard. Multiple explosions ringing out, thick plumes of smoke captured on camera by panicked residents. This is one of the clearest signs yet that Ukraine is in the ascendancy and that Vladimir Putin has completely, utterly lost control of his own skies. So what exactly happened? This was a massive, coordinated operation. Overnight on October 26th, swarms of Ukrainian drones crossed the border, making a beeline for the Moscow region and several other key oblasts in western Russia. Now, let's get the official story out of the way first. You know, the one from the Russian Ministry of Defense. They claim to have had a spectacular night. They announced they intercepted a staggering 193 drones in total. They listed them off like a grocery list. 47 over Bryansk, 42 over Kaluga, 32 over Tula, 10 over Kursk, and on and on. And Moscow? They claimed 40 drones were intercepted over the Moscow region alone, with 34 of them supposedly heading directly for the capital city. Moscow's mayor, Sergei Sobyanin, was online all night, posting these calming messages, claiming the city's air defenses were successfully repelling all incoming threats. He warned locals about falling debris, urged them to stay home. All very routine, right? Two of Moscow's four main airports, Domodedovo and Zhukovsky, were forced to temporarily suspend all operations. But again, the official line was, no major damage. We shot them all down. But come on, we've been watching this movie for 3.5 years. What do we know about the Kremlin's relationship with the truth? It's, let's just say, flexible. They will happily twist the narrative, spin the statistics, and flat out lie to cover up anything that makes them look weak. But in the modern age of the internet, the truth has a nasty habit of coming out, and it came out fast. Russian social media channels and Telegram lit up. These weren't official reports. These were real people, Moscow residents, publishing panicked posts. And with those posts came the photos and videos. Thick clouds of black smoke rising over the city skyline, and the sound. Locals reported multiple loud explosions rocking the city streets. We're not talking about a small border town. We're talking about the Moscow metropolitan area, home to nearly 22 million people. How many of them do you think spent the night in shock and fright? How many of them got just a small, tiny taste of what the civilians of Kyiv, Kharkiv, and Odessa experience on a nightly basis? So if everything was shot down, what was all that smoke? What were those explosions? This is where the real journalism begins. The independent news agency Astra wasn't satisfied with the official story. They geolocated the eyewitness photos, and hold on tight, they tracked the exact location where one of the thickest plumes of smoke was coming from. It was near the village of Kommunarka, which is part of Moscow. The smoke was rising from a wooded area right next to a main drive. So something was hit, but it gets better. Astra also obtained evidence of another fire, this one in Serpukhov, also in the Moscow region. And what caught fire there? An oil depot. Let's read that again. An oil depot. Now, local officials in their panic tried to downplay this immediately. They told local media, oh, it was just an empty fuel tanker. The fire was small. It's out. We don't know the cause. An empty fuel tanker at an oil depot in the middle of a 193 drone attack that just spontaneously caught on fire? What do you think? Does that pass the sniff test? This is a classic Ukrainian signature. For months, they have been waging a brilliant campaign targeting fuel and oil-related infrastructure. And now they've done it on Moscow's doorstep. But what about the reports of a high-rise building being hit? Russian channels immediately jumped on this, claiming a drone struck an apartment. This is their favorite propaganda line. Ukraine is targeting civilians. But there's another, far more embarrassing possibility. What if that wasn't a Ukrainian drone? What if it was one of Russia's own air defense missiles? It sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? Except, it keeps happening. Just a few weeks ago, in early October, a devastating friendly fire blunder occurred. A Russian Pantsir S-1 air defense system launched a missile at an incoming drone, and well, it missed. The missile was caught on camera arcing through the air before slamming directly into a Russian apartment block. The explosion was massive. And who can forget the infamous 2023 incident when a Russian Su-34 fighter jet accidentally dropped a bomb on the Russian city of Belgorod? It left a massive crater, injured 3 people, and damaged several homes. So when you have a city as densely populated as Moscow, with high-rises everywhere, and you have panicked air defense crews firing missiles into the sky, what's more likely? That a single Ukrainian drone slipped through and randomly hit one apartment, or that a multi-million-dollar Russian missile missed its target and hit a friendly building? Either way, whether it was a Ukrainian hit or a friendly fire disaster, the Kremlin's claim that the attack was entirely thwarted is an absolute, verifiable lie. And this wasn't just a random terror attack on the capital. This was a coordinated, strategic operation. At the same time the drones were hitting Moscow, other groups were hitting high-value military targets. Andriy Kovalenko, the head of Ukraine's Center for Counteracting Disinformation, confirmed it online. In the Moscow region and other regions of Russia, military airfields are under attack. Russian media itself filled in the blanks. They claimed Ukrainian strike drones were targeting an airfield housing Russia's strategic bombers. We're talking about the Tu-160, the Tu-95MS, and the Tu-22M3. These are the planes that launch cruise missiles at Ukrainian cities. Explosions were also reported at the Tchaikovka airfield and Kaluga airport. Tchaikovka is the home base for several Tu-22M3 bomber planes. We don't know the full extent of the damage to those bombers yet, but this all ties into Ukraine's brilliant, long-running campaign against Russia's long-range aviation. It's a direct continuation of Operation Spiderweb, the iconic attack in June 2025 that hit 4 separate airfields in one day and damaged a huge portion of the bomber fleet. So, you have a massive drone swarm. You have oil depots on fire in the Moscow region. You have strategic bomber bases under attack. A spectacular operation, right? Well, hold on, because Ukraine saved its smartest move for last. This one wasn't about Moscow. It was about the front line. It was about pure 21st century, asymmetric genius. On the same day, October 26th, Ukrainian forces carried out another successful strike, this time in the Belgorod region of Russia. Now, to understand why this was so brilliant, you need the context. In recent days, Russian forces had been making relatively significant progress in their efforts to capture the Ukrainian city of Vovchansk, right over the border. Why? According to the 16th Army Corps of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, the enemy was exploiting a window of opportunity. After an extremely hot, dry summer, the Siversky Donets and Vovcha rivers had dried up, simplifying logistics for the Russians. They had stockpiled reserves, the trees still had leaves for cover, and they were pushing hard. In fact, Vladimir Putin was reportedly informed on that very day that his forces already occupied 70% of Vovchansk. They were confident of a crushing victory. And what did Ukraine do? Did they send 1,000 men into a meat grinder to stop them? No. They planned the perfect counter-operation. On the night of October 26th, they used drones to attack the nearby Belgorod dam. The dam immediately began leaking water. This is 4D chess. Ukraine didn't just attack the Russian soldiers, they attacked the geography. They used Russia's own dam against them. The water, which had been held back, began flooding the very riverbeds the Russians were using as supply lines. Think about the genius of that. In one move, they flooded Russian dugouts, cut several units off from their supplies, and put Putin's advancing troops at risk of quite literally being washed away. The commander of Ukraine's unmanned systems forces, Robert Madyar Bravdy, shared the footage online, stating, "The Belgorod reservoir cracked today. Since the initial strike, the water level has dropped by 100 centimeters. With one precise, intelligent strike, Ukraine's forces now have a much better chance of holding Vovchansk, and the entire Russian operation in the area is at risk of total collapse." So let's put this all together. What does this all mean? The attack on Moscow wasn't just a PR stunt. The strikes on the airfields weren't just random. The dam attack wasn't just a lucky hit. This was a symphony. This is a sign of how far Ukraine's armed forces have come. When the war began, Kyiv was exclusively focused on defense, on just surviving. They had no time to even think about counterattacks, let alone direct strikes on Moscow, the beating heart of Russia's government and high society. Now, things have changed. Ukraine has solidified its defenses, and it has found the time, the resources, and the opportunities to strike back, deep into Russia itself, hundreds of miles beyond its borders. And in doing so, Kyiv's forces are bringing the war home to the Russian people, and to Vladimir Putin himself. For 3.5 years, many Russians, especially the elites in Moscow, have been able to see the war as a distant conflict, something on TV, something that didn't have any direct impact on their lives. They could go about their day, enjoying the comforts and luxuries of the richest city in Russia, feeling a million miles away from the blood-soaked battlefields of Donetsk. Many would never have imagined they'd see the day when Ukrainian drones were buzzing above their heads, or that they'd be checking their phones for news of explosions in their city. But that's all changing. Now, even citizens of Moscow, which is supposed to be Russia's safest stronghold, will start to think twice. They'll cast nervous glances into the air anytime they hear a vague buzzing sound, fearful that another Ukrainian drone might be right around the corner. This is exactly what Ukraine is hoping for. When Kyiv conducts attacks of this kind, it's not purely about the physical damage. It's not just about starting fires or triggering explosions. One of the main objectives is to make the Russian people see and feel the effects of the war firsthand. And is it working? Well, the numbers don't lie. This psychological pressure is already starting to show up in the data. A recent damning poll carried out by the independent Levada Center found that support for the war in Russia has reached an all-time low. Get this, just 27% of people feel the fighting should continue. Meanwhile, 66% of Russians, two-thirds of the population, believe that the time is long overdue for peaceful negotiations and a ceasefire. More Russians also now feel that the war is impacting their lives. 58% agree that it has affected them to at least some extent. Some have lost friends or family. Others have felt their freedoms and, more importantly, their financial situations worsen. And if Ukraine's drones keep appearing over Russia's cities in the weeks and months ahead, what do you think is going to happen to those numbers? More Russian people will feel their lives directly impacted. More will become fearful. More will worry that they might be mobilized. And more will feel a growing sense of anger and resentment for the one man who started all this madness and the one man who still, for now, has the power to stop it. Vladimir Putin himself. Now, Putin may not care much for the average Russian, we know that. But he does care about power. And he knows he needs to keep a large part of the population on his side to maintain his powerful position. But the national mood is starting to sour. The economy is weakening. Millions of Russians are sick and tired of a war that feels like it will never end. And with Moscow itself now under threat, with smoke filling the city skies, and reports of pickup trucks filled with armed guards aiming machine guns into the air right outside the Kremlin gates, the Russian president has never, ever looked weaker.